BJ for Game Gumbo. I've got my guest here, Dennis Chan, designer of Beyond the Sun, and we're talking some spicy hot games. And I've got a game that I played this week. I just got it in. I don't think you've played it yet, Dennis, but are you a Roll and Write fan?
Barely played any.
Okay.
I played Welcome to, and I think that might be it. Oh, and Railroad Inc.
Two good ones.
Yeah.
Two good rando writers. This one is Three Sisters. It's from Motor City Gameworks. If you've never heard of that publishing company, it's really, Matt Riddle and Ben Pinchback, designers of tons of games like Fleet and a million of them. And they designed a game called Fleet the Dice Game a year or so ago. It was kind of a roll and write version of their Fleet game. But what they set out to do, Dennis, is make a board game that's a roll and write rather than a roll and write game. Does that make sense?
Can you elaborate?
They're going to give you the flavor of you playing a full-scale board game in a roll and write version. Whereas Welcome to, great game.
Yeah.
Railroad Inc., great game. They feel like roll and writes. You're doing stuff to mark on paper.
Yeah.
This feels like all the interplay and actions of a what does Matt always say, of a disappointingly mathy Euro game. It's got all that interaction of this big giant game just into two little sheets. Now, when I say sheets, I mean they're full to the top. There's not an inch, there's not a centimeter on the sheets that is not covered with some kind of symbol or circle that you have to dot in. And what I like about Three Sisters, I liked Fleet the Dice Game a lot, but I wasn't familiar with Fleet. I've never actually played Fleet until this year. I hadn't played it back then. So Three Sisters is the spiritual successor. It takes its genesis as something that happened in Ben's backyard. Ben learned that you could plant the Three Sisters and that squash, corn, and beans together, because the original inhabitants of North America learned that if you plant them symbiotically, they each grow better. The squash gets rid of the weeds, the corn protects from something, and I forgot what the three. Steve, do you know? Can you help me out? Because I'm floundering. I don't know why, but they do well as symbiotically.
Yeah.
So Matt says, well, that's a board game. Well, let's try it as a roll and write instead. The players roll dice. It's a rondel instead of a Fleet the Dice game. The actions that you select come from a rondel of 6 or 7 or 8 actions. But what's always interesting is that whatever dice is not chosen, once everybody's taken their choice. So Dennis takes a 6, and that means he plants beans, and that means he also does the 6 action over here on this board. And then I take the 4, and I go into my garden in the 4 spot, and I plant some corn, or maybe I water my corn, and then I do the action on the 4 spot. And everybody does that, right? Whatever dice is left over, everyone does. So you want to take the die you really need, but at the same time, you're hoping Steve doesn't take that second die you really want. So you're actually leaving places on your board, hoping that no one else takes that die, because I really want the 4, but I also need the 2. So that kind of juicy, delicious decision of leaving out the die, whereas a lot of other games, the last die is shelved. Nobody uses it. That's not as satisfying. That's not as satisfying, Dennis. I want to be able to use that extra little action. It kind of reminds me from that standpoint of any game like a Scythe, where when other people do stuff and you get a benefit, you know what I'm talking about?
I really like the mechanic. Anytime someone else does things, I do it too. Like, it just makes the turn like
Space Base. Space Base did it perfect. I mean, you develop your board so that whatever Dennis and Steve do, I'm going to get benefits. That is just, that's just so satisfying. I don't know what it is. It hits certain markers in your brain that just kind of triggers the dopamine response.
There's also Puerto Rico, which is a classic example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sure. The object in Puerto Rico is really not to pick the spot you want, to make other people pick the spot you really need.
Yeah.
Right after you did the action, that's going to make that action even better. That's how to win at Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
If not, you're always a step behind. Three Sisters doesn't go that far, but what it does is I've been joking with Matt and Ben that it reminds me of a kid that just opened up a big box and has bubble wrap in it, and he wraps himself in bubble wrap, because by the back half of the game, you have so many little synergies and combos. All you're doing is pop, 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 pop in bubble wrap. And it's just really exciting in the back half of the game to see all those combos really play. It's coming out on Kickstarter. I don't have a preview up yet. I want a couple more plays because I've just been playing it solo, and I'm trying to get a couple more plays in it with multiplayers. It's got a great solo mechanic, by the way. You're competing against this farmer who keeps taking the best spots. And the other thing about it is it allows you to upgrade your actions. And most of these games like Gone Shun Clever or Welcome to, they might help you get more points, but they don't upgrade your actions. In Three Sisters, you can grab a rake or a hoe or a water barrel or an apple pie holder, and all of that stuff gives you more benefits. And also, who hates when the dice hate you, right? You're rolling dice and they just don't behave, right? In Three Sisters, you've got the compost pile, and you can burn that compost to mitigate your dice rolls, like you do in Castle of Burgundy with the.
I like that.
The workers,
The
yeah.
workers, yeah.
Other workers. So you can do that in Three Sisters. So that's Three Sisters. It's coming out from Motor City Gameworks. It's going to be relatively inexpensive. This is them self-publishing, not a big deal. It's just a game that they want to see come out. It'll be coming out in Kickstarter sometime in March. Check that out. Yeah. I do get excited about games. As I tell Alex and Steve all the time, do I want to work or do I want to talk about games on a Tuesday night? As you can see, I like talking about games on Tuesday night. But this is what I really do. I think, oh, yeah, that's right, Evan. I totally forgot about that. That is Beth Sobel, our favorite artist, out there doing the cover for Three Sisters. So it's beautiful.
For this is a roll and write, BJ. It sounds like rather than it being purely solitaire, you do have to pay attention to what other people are collecting. You can't just play this as, here's my board, I'm going to try to beat somebody else's score. You have to be, playing their boards too with the dice that you're choosing.
You absolutely do, because in that rondel, look, the dice is sometimes going to hose you, right? You're going to roll the dice, and the dice that you really need doesn't come out. That's where you have to mitigate it. But the winning strategy, once you know the game, is to watch Steve and Dennis and how they're developing their garden, because I need to zig while you guys are zagging. Otherwise, you're going to always take the actions I want, and then I can never get them. Those numbers correspond not only to the sections in your garden that you're going to upgrade, but it also corresponds to the rondel actions. So I got to make sure I'm doing that. So